Hey guys, alright, we're back with another episode of Step on Foot with Marco, Luke, and Kevin, of course. And first off, we're just going to kick things off with the big game yesterday. And no, I'm not talking about Arsenal playing, even though you guys have decided to watch that incredibly instead of a very nice Real Madrid versus Bayern Munich, which saw, I think, two of the biggest titans in the Champions League landscape right now. It ended 2-1 in favor of Bayern, but some have said that Bayern could have scored more. Some said that Real Madrid could have even gone ahead and gotten the draw. Guys, what did you think about Bayern Munich? Because we don't really talk about Bayern Munich. We're always talking about, Premier League clubs, PSG, Barcelona, but we never mention Bayern Munich. Kevin, why do you think that is? And what can you expect? What can we expect from Bayern in the Champions League?
I think we don't talk much about them because of the level of their league, honestly. It's expected that they will win the league, win the cup, probably win the Champions League. I feel like that they're currently the strongest team in Europe, like we saw yesterday, beating Real Madrid at home. Um, yeah,
Even
I
more
mean,
than PSG, you mean?
I think so. I think they're a well-rounded team.
I've already
Neuer,
told you guys that Bayern Munich against PSG in the Champions League final would be an absolute show, and it would really be the pinnacle of a really good Champions League final.
mhm.
Two teams who just go for it. And yesterday, the Bayern that I saw, guys, was on a completely different level than Serie A
Neuer
clubs.
winning man of the match again at 40 years old. Incredible.
And when is he ever going to let go for the next generations of keepers to play? But yeah, look, I mean, what do you think? Like, how can Serie A clubs? This is a bit of a weird question, and a bit of a heavy one to start things off. But how can Serie A clubs really compete with the caliber of a team like Bayern Munich in the Champions League? Because we've already seen Atalanta get demolished by them. Who, in fairness, Atalanta aren't the strongest Serie A club, but still.
First of all, just to kind of continue on what you said, I like Bayern. I liked Bayern when they took over a company. They took a chance on a new coach with a offensive tiki-taka kind of style of play. I don't think that they're at the level of PSG for me personally. But having the likes of Kane and especially Elise, who's a player that I really like. I think they could be up there, and they I didn't see the game yesterday because I saw Sporting Arsenal.
We'll talk about that later
but
on, but yeah, I mean,
yeah.
the players.
Um,
The thing is, what happens is that Bayern make these kind of big transfers, and they take some really incredible players to their own team. As you said, Kevin, they go into a league that nobody really follows, or very few people follow, because it's always Bayern winning.
Mm.
So we kind of forget about the likes of Olise and Kane, even though Kane is doing a fantastic job as a striker, and also Luis Diaz, who like completely fell off the face of the earth, it seems, but he's actually on an insane kind of run with Bayern. And it's only in these kinds of odd Champions League games that we are reminded of how great Bayern really is. And again, look, I'm going to throw that Serie A question back at you again. Like, how can we even compete with teams of this caliber?
I think it's quite simple, really. You almost answered the question yourselves. I mean, Bayern are in a different kind of league from Italy, in my opinion, because uh, you always have it's similar to Spain, like three or four maximum teams that actually compete in the league, and similar to PSG also, it's different for them to compete, in my opinion, in a league. If we were talking, for example, Inter, in my opinion, especially the Inter that we faced last Sunday, are the team that can most, compete with a team like Bayern in terms of, players, and definitely Atalanta. Obviously, they were not ready to face such a fixture against Bayern.
I think that, you know, Palladino, Atalanta's coach, did have, we should have asked a few questions of Palladino in that Atalanta Bayern game. It ended what 6-1 or 7-1? Jog my memory, like
Something like
7
that. But
was
uh,
because I
I
mean
think
Seven, I think.
it would be a bit unfair to just mention Palladino. It was his first Champions League experience.
sure, but as a coach, a professional coach, you have. I mean, again, you can lose a game for 3-0, 4-0, but 7, man. I mean, maybe it's Bayern that's extremely good, and maybe that's the case, and they've proven it yesterday at the
I think that's the case.
Bernabeu. It's just a
To go
or-
to
Not the,
Bernabeu and outplay Real Madrid. I mean, sure, they got a goal back, but
because
yeah.
they did outplay them in the first half,
They did, they
especially. It
did.
was
Mhm.
just such an unrelenting team when it comes to attack. They have so many good players, even like. But the thing is, what's really funny is Company, man. How did they how did Bayern identify Company, who had been relegated, right, with Burnley
Mhm.
into the
I do
championship?
think he had the system. He had the system there with Burnley. It's just obviously the level of the squad that he had
he
to
took them to
work.
the Premier League.
Yeah, he got promotion and then obviously
Yeah.
got relegated again. But I think it's the system that, in fact, he probably would be next in line if not Maresca. City really want a City legend, sort
I've
of
never thought about that actually.
that knows the
Not
club. So I think Company would, I would say, be next in line. But
that would be a
um,
good signing.
that would
That
be.
would be a good.
I like his. He has quite yeah, like Luke said, like a tiki-taka Spanish, but also an offensive game. I think it would suit City really well. It's the same system he played in when, we had the likes of Aguero and Touré in the middle, playing the passing and then offensive.
And
I
also
think
from
it
the
would
like
really fit.
characteristic standpoint, I'm not sure if you've ever seen videos of him behind the scenes in the dressing room at Bayern. Like he's such a character, very strong.
Mhm.
He doesn't take crap from anyone. He doesn't tolerate any lapses of concentration, things like that.
Mhm.
Even though, you know, as we've said, like is the German league, they're like it's always Bayern who seem to win every weekend, but it's still, man, he goes at them really hard every single weekend, every single game. It seems that they take it really seriously. They're taking games very, very seriously, and they also have the talent to back it up. Now,
To be fair,
let's, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Bayer Leverkusen was a kind of like a breath of fresh air, no, for German
Yeah,
football.
definitely.
You had a system and a coach that was very particular in the way he played, and he was a good thing for Germany really.
It did
I just
seem
want
like it was going to die out soon, though. It did seem
sure
like a Leicester season for them.
But it's
I
only
don't
because
think.
they sold their team and the
Yeah,
coach.
and they didn't really replace them. I don't really know who they signed, but I don't think they
They
really
signed Ten
replaced
Hag, which ended
the players.
disastrously.
Yeah,
But
but
and you have to
selling the.
consider that they had a system and like the puzzles, the pieces of the
mm,
puzzle they changed, including the coach. So obviously, it went belly
I
up.
was still, to be honest,
Mhm.
very disappointed with Bayer Leverkusen for how they tackled the subsequent season after they won the league. Because, it's one thing to, like, it's difficult to create that one season where they manage to win, like, a very, very sought after trophy, produce
Mhm.
so much talent, and not even develop it rather than produce it. But the next season also says something about you as a club. Like after you win, then what? Like what happened to Milan in the 2021 campaign where they won the league. But then the question was, what now? It's always that once you win, it's about staying there. It's about, getting a grip on what works, on your assets, on your diamonds of players and the coach, and trying to push on into the next season. But the way how Bayer Leverkusen just offloaded everyone without too much
And
of
they
a
made so
thought.
much money. They made so much money from like
Kevin, I
the
don't think
from.
that it's not good enough, man. It's not like sure you can sell and you can sell your jewels for a
But they
lot
didn't replace them properly.
it's sometimes better to not sell entirely or just sell some pieces of the puzzle, but not everything, because you can get a replacement for whatever player, right? I mean, the transfer market is full of players, but then the way, like, what you have right now, you know that it works, and you know that what you have right now is integrated into the coaching system, into the coach, the system of, play. So this whole, even again, I'm going to mention my club, Milan, this whole, buying, selling, then moving on to the next one, you don't create anything. You don't create a cycle. It's just, recycling, just, talent coming in, talent coming out. And it's very hard for
I
coaches
think
to make something of it.
I think that the problem is that, especially, it's kind of like a result of Cinderella stories similar to Leverkusen, or where when you win something that was unexpected. Obviously,
Leicester, for example.
yeah, it attracts attention. For example, let's take Leicester. Fine. If City come knocking on the door for Mahrez, if Chelsea come knocking on the door for Kante, it's a unique opportunity for the players also, and obviously your hands are tied, so it's as if you have to sell them. And
Maybe
it's
you don't
not
have to
that
sell
easy to
everyone.
replace them.
That's my point. You don't have to
Uh,
really.
sure, I think, but you have to be in a position to actually implement that system. Because, for example, Atalanta recently, they're implementing a system that they can only sell, or they need to sell one player, one important player a year. They sold Retegin, that's why they didn't want to sell Lookman, for example, this year. Some
And also,
clubs
that's
like
something like, look, that we're used to as Serie A fans, but in reality, it shouldn't be that way, man. Why should a team like Atalanta and Milan and Roma and whoever else in the Serie A just say, okay, we have to just sell one of our. Imagine City doing that. Like City have to sell one player between Haaland, between Cherky, between every single season. What a
it
load of
depends
pressure is
on
that?
the team. I think it depends on the team, because, for example, um, if Roma are obliged to sell a player by 30th June to meet financial fair play
That's
standards,
the thing.
their hands are tied.
We're always
With
chasing that
regards to Atalanta,
FFP, like, kind of.
yeah. It's also a question of wages. If Retegui has an offer on the table from Saudi Arabia with triple wages, it's their hands are tied as well. Same thing for a Premier League club. If they come knocking with a lot of wages,
There's not a lot you can do.
yeah, exactly. It
And then if you
depends on
do
the
something,
situation.
then the player might, just, I'm not going to play.
Sure.
Case in point, Isak. So
It's a
as a club, I
very.
don't think you have that much control, to be honest.
Yeah,
think
I
the
mean, what I
players-
said is easier said than done, granted, but it's always a pity to see any team have a lot of success and then in the subsequent season. I'm going to also mention Girona from Spain. They qualified to the Champions League, ending second or third, not sure. But then they offloaded practically everyone, and they're not rock bottom this year again. It's been a while since they've had this great season, but even like Girona had something similar. It ended up in the pretty much same disaster. But let's go back to the Champions League, guys. Sporting lost to Arsenal very late on 91st minute to a goal from Havertz. I'm going to let you guys comment about this one because I did not watch it. I heard that Arsenal weren't really impressive overall. Some even said that they didn't really deserve to win. Kevin, what's up
I think
with
they
this game?
played the whole game, playing for set pieces, falling back. Sporting, I mean, they started off really, really well. Attacking, Raya basically saved Arsenal yesterday.
Really, he's doing well.
Shot after shot, they hit the bar very early on as well.
Not a lot of
yeah.
chances, it seems. Like 0.84 xG for Sporting and 0.78 for Arsenal.
Yeah, it
Not
was
a lot
very
happened,
yeah, it
it
was
seems.
very deadlocked as a game. Not much happened. It was more first half, I think, was more had the most attack from Sporting at least. And Arsenal just playing for set pieces.
And how did the goal come about? Was it a counter-attack or?
Yeah, I think towards the end they found the ball through, and yeah, just
That was That was a good ball from Martinelli. To be fair,
Mhm.
it was a really, really good goal, and
Like, Luke, do you think it's settled? Like the tie is settled now because obviously Sporting have to go away to Arsenal, and
look, from what I saw from the first game, I think I can agree with Kevin. That I think my opinion is that I think Sporting played a very tactical game, and they were very defensively prepared to face Arsenal. From what I saw, I think that Arsenal, they controlled the game. But Sporting had those counter attacks that were quite dangerous and risky for Arsenal. But it's as if the feeling was that no matter what Sporting do, they cannot break down and score. And I thought it was going to finish, like a 0-0 game, but obviously there was a good last minute attack from Arsenal, and Martinelli found Havertz, and it was, I think that obviously on paper they already played at home, and now Arsenal are going to play at home, 1-0 advantage. So obviously you have to consider that Arsenal should be the favourites. You never know, but I think Arsenal still has it in the bag, in my opinion.
even because Sporting did go in their previous Champions League fixture, they did go away to Bodo Glimt, and it was a
Turned
bit
it
of
around.
yeah, but they only turned it around at home. Away they lost
Yeah.
3-0. So
Yes.
I mean, away from home their record isn't really crazy good. So that's why I would
But I do feel like the pressure is catching up to Arsenal.
yes,
You
yes,
could see
especially
yesterday,
with the port. Who was it? Southampton. That's
Southampton.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, like, what did you think about that result? I honestly was paying attention to that result only from an FPL point of view, because if Arsenal
Mhm.
had passed, they would have then doubled in the upcoming game
Mhm.
weeks, and it threw a bit of a wrench in my plans, and I didn't really expect Southampton to beat them. Like, it was
Yeah, me
a
neither.
shocker, honestly.
Southampton were excellent in that game. I think they are one of the few teams that found Arsenal out, and that's basically to attack them, to not
Hmm.
fall back and let them play on the set pieces and mount pressure.
And be
Southampton
brave,
attacked.
maybe. I
Yeah,
think bravery is
they were
something to
brave.
do
They
with it.
attacked. They were winning, and then Arsenal drew, and then they scored again. So
What do you think is
yeah,
happening with Arsenal in terms of their mental headspace right now? They lost to Southampton. They struggled against Sporting.
I
It's
think
the end of the season.
it's the not being used to closing up a a, a, a tournament. I would say a
A
season,
competition,
a
yeah.
competition. Yeah, I don't think they're used to seeing it out.
But do you think, from an
Um,
Arsenal fan's point of view, that it's about time that they grow up, so to speak, and say, sure, we don't have all the experience in the world to, lock down competitions from the like early on or anything like that.
mhm.
But now Arteta's been in charge for a few years, and the players aren't exactly very young. Most of them are extremely talented, have been paid a fortune. You know, is it time that we expect more from Arsenal at this point of the season?
I think we should have gotten more for Arsenal a long time ago, considering the squad level, the squad depth, the talent. I mean, when Saka had his good season, I think that was their time to win the league as well.
And
But I do.
because yeah, like right now Arteta is seen as this kind of pioneer, as this really good coach who is doing a fantastic job, but he doesn't have a lot to show for it. And for like from the past seasons and even going now, like this season, guys, Arsenal has a squad that really is impressive. The depth that they have is really something that we can only dream about, as Serie A fans, me and Luke. But again, if Arsenal don't win anything this season, because it is a possibility, like, Luke, what do you think should be done about Arteta if he were to not win anything this season?
I'm smiling because I have a colleague at work that is a diehard Arsenal fan, and basically, at the beginning of the season, I told him, listen, if I think Arteta, it's time for a change. You haven't won anything, and he told me, calma, calma. We'll see this year. But then finally he told me, but if we don't win this year again, it's time to change.
So it's
But
only calma until the end of the season.
no, it's funny because with Arsenal it's as if they're trusting the process. I think they have been trusting the process for quite some time now. And again, I really thought that they had the league in previous years, but they had either Liverpool or City in the way. If they don't win it this year, and to be fair, I was saying this yesterday, and I said this after the Southampton result. When I see the Southampton result as a championship team that manages to get the win and the qualification against Arsenal, when you have not that good performance against Sporting, for me, mentally, they're focused on the league. The problem is that if you still have nothing to show for at the end of the season and you still missed on winning the league, which is something risky. Inter did it last year, for example. They were in the running to win the Coppa Italia, the Champions League, and the league. And somehow they managed to. And I remember when the last game of the season, I think it was against Cagliari. They hadn't. No,
Napoli played Cagliari in the end of the season. I'm not sure who Inter played, but they played Como and won, I think, 2-0.
Could be. I remember that one of the staff from Inzaghi said, "Don't worry, we lost the league. We'll get something in Munich now."
In Munich, yeah.
And they got 5 goals, so they finished with nothing. Which that is a risky kind of,
But to be honest, I don't really agree with this whole thing of, oh no, we're not playing well in X tournament because we're focusing on Y tournament. Like, I don't think that argument holds a lot of water.
They're not even in a position to have that argument because they won nothing. So it's not, they can't really say, oh, we're focusing on the FA Cup, or because they will take anything they can get because they won absolutely nothing.
I mean, there are coaches, I will mention Conte, for example, who really likes getting knocked out of the Champions League to then focus on the league and, the Coppa Italia maybe. But in Arsenal's point of view, I don't think that this whole thing of, oh no, we're not going to, like, maybe the Southampton game wasn't given the utmost of importance. I can see that happening, but as a team competing even like to this stage of the Champions League, which I mean Arsenal didn't have a crazy hard time to get there, even in the group stages they ended first. But so I mean they really should give this and they are giving the Champions League importance, but this is all just to say that I really don't like this argument of oh no, we're not like giving this competition importance because we're giving this competition importance.
Like, I mean, they did say they're gonna win the quadruple this year, and
it started that way.
That was their focus, and then it started to shift. Oh no, it's just the FA Cup. It's the Premier League. It's the Champions League.
Guys, I have a feeling that Arteta cannot give anything more than this to Arsenal. I have a suspicion that he's a good coach, very interesting coach in his own ways with the throw-ins and the corner kicks. Kevin, you can tell us a lot about that. But I do think that there are ceilings that coaches have when it comes to how much they can give to a team. And I think Arteta this season will say a lot about how much more Arteta can give to the team. Because if he cannot bring them any trophies this season, I really do expect him to tie down the Premier League. The Champions League, I don't think so because there are better teams than Arsenal. But yeah,
I think in the next round they would get found out. Is it?
I think it's either Barca or Atletico.
So let's say they meet Barcelona. I don't see Arsenal beating Barcelona. The way Barcelona play, their explosive attacking flair, I don't think that you saw it yesterday. Once Sporting started to attack, Arsenal already started to be a bit more cautious, and you could see even when Gabriel had the ball, terrified.
I'm more afraid of Atletico, to be fair, because Barcelona, they're a very, very strong team. They have very strong players. It's just that every time I've seen them this year and last year under Flick, defensively they were a bit shaky.
Because Flick plays that very weird high line.
Yes. with Atletico, you have a structured coach that plays a defensive game, and if you have informed players like Alvarez, for example,
I'm actually going to
they
stop you
might
here,
really.
Luke, because that is a very, very common fallacy we have about Atletico Madrid this season. They
Hmm.
aren't as defensive minded as they used to be, actually. They are very, very an attacking team who concede a bunch of goals this season. They have conceded
Mhm.
a lot. They like fans have had issue with Simeone, especially this season, from because I did do some research about this, and it's more of a rock and roll kind of Atletico side this season because there are a lot of goals in most Atletico games, but they do concede. They concede a lot. They conceded against Tottenham in both legs, and this
Mhm.
isn't to mention even in the La Liga where they conceded way too many goals, and they are now third in the league if I'm not mistaken. So it did compromise their season a bit. So yeah, just to point out that it might be a more of an interesting game from if Arsenal were to draw Atletico
I
in the
think I
Champions
Mhm.
League.
think if a team is attacking, they can handle Arsenal. So I think that not being solid in the back is not that much of a problem because
Mm.
Arsenal don't really play attacking football. They
And
play
you know
quite.
what's
They try
what's
to.
a bit of a paradox here, Kev, is that Arsenal has one of, if not the best defense in the league. But the
Mhm.
That's their strong
moment
point.
you
In Europe,
attack them
if I'm not
in
mistaken.
Europe, right, you're right.
They fall
But
apart
yeah,
once you
but the
attack them.
moment you actually attack them and actually try to put that notion into test,
Hmm
mm, why? Why is
Because
it
their,
that they
I think
falter?
that because their expectation is that okay, we're playing the strongest defensive team in the world. Let's say the world. We have to be careful. We can't attack because there's no point to attack because we're gonna meet Saliba and Gabriel. So no point in attacking. Let's just try to control the game, and then that's where they take advantage. So when you have teams like Southampton and Sporting testing out the defense, they crumble. You could see it yesterday. Trincao, at least in the first half from Sporting, he was the one, going on the flanks and taking shots. Arsenal were like, oh shit, a team's attacking us. And then they start to suffer. Southampton won. Sporting maybe should have gotten a point out of the game. But it wouldn't have been a surprise if Sporting did win the game. So
Yeah, we'll see how it goes in the return leg, of course. Now, we have some time to go over what happened in the Serie A last weekend. So, not very good news for our teams, Luke. But let's start. I'll delay you you know, the tragedy. So, I'll talk about Napoli Milan. I'm not sure if you guys watched the game, but I actually only managed to watch the second half because I was playing a game for my own at on that day. But yeah, it nothing really happened in the first half. In the half that I missed, in the
Did you
second
win at
half,
least, Marco?
yes we did, and I actually
Oh,
scored two
very good.
goals in the league, and we actually won 7-5. So I'll have you know
Amazing.
that. You actually thought I didn't, and we lost. That's what you hope for, look.
No, no. Because if you had lost, I mean, it would have been not so good football
No,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
golden
But
draw. Yeah.
it would have been
that,
a disastrous Monday. So I only like yeah, I watched until like my team like Milan really this season has been promising and disappointing in the same breath because you see a team who manages to really challenge the other top clubs and they can win the games you don't think they could, especially coming off a very bad season last year where we finished eighth. That was a terrible one. So the season is obviously much better, but at the same time, it's it's tough to see a coach who is so terrified to attack, terrified to, you know, push out a brave team. Because Milan are many things, but they are not brave. They aren't brave in the sense that they go on and try to win a game. They will sit back and they'll sit back and sit back until they have that little goal or goal scoring opportunity that hopefully settles the game, win it 1-0, and everyone's happy. But dear Allegri, this isn't how to play the game. It might be how you attack certain fixtures against Inter, against other top clubs like Juventus, but sometimes this will happen. And my dad told me, he was also a Milan fan, I admit, but objectively he did say that the game was pretty balanced. Like if the result ended in a 0-0, like nobody would have complained too much. But I saw the defensive error at the end with Atekam and Bartesaghi making a mess, and even these players, Atekam, Bartesaghi. Is this how Milan were supposed to challenge for the league, Luke, do you think? Like, do you share my concern in this sense when talking about Milan as a potential before this result, challenging title challenging side, but then having to field players of this caliber?
Okay, so to answer your question, and then I will counter your argument after answering your question. I don't think Milan were set out to win the league this year. I think their objective was to simply finish in the top
The
four
top
and get
four,
Champions
yeah.
League football. I think they thought that they might compete or win the league is because Conte did it with Napoli, and it was kind of a similar process.
And also the fact that Allegri in his first year at Milan way back did it too. He won the league.
Sure. But if you're a team that is without European football, you'd expect to do well in Italy in your first year, just like Conte did. To counter your argument, sorry. To be fair, Milan and Allegri, it was one of the first direct encounters in Serie A that they lost, and so I think against the big teams. I don't want to say
we
they
lost
played
twice
well,
to Lazio, who again might not be the biggest team
I
in
said
Italy.
big teams. I said big teams.
All right, you'd say it as a Roma fan, that, huh?
No. To be fair, when I say big teams, I mean like top 6, top 5.
Yeah.
Which excludes Roma, by the way, if we're talking about top 5. In the league, I mean they won both games against Inter. They beat us and drew against us. For example, if you had to take the game against Roma, the last game that we played against each other, it should have finished, in my opinion, 4 or 5-0 for Roma. But
in the first half, for sure, yeah.
Milan found the header, and we managed to scrape a draw through a penalty.
That's exactly what Allegri is trying to do. Like, the game against you guys was a great example, because he just fielded a team that was too defensive. By some miracle, we didn't concede. Malen, I remember, missed a great chance in the first half. Then it took a header and we scored from the Winter. But then came a penalty, which again, to be fair, it came a bit from nowhere. Modric, or I'm not sure who said, I think it was Modric who said that if it wasn't for the penalty, we would have, Roma wouldn't have scored. And he might have been right. But the thing is that if you play 90 minutes defensively, you're bound to have things happen to you. If it's a goal like Politano's goal last Monday, or if it's a penalty that happened against Roma as well, some things happen. You cannot. I mean, I appreciate where Allegri is coming from, because he did inherit a very defensively fragile team. But still, I think. Do you think?
I think
he can
the problem.
better?
Better, I don't know, because I don't think this is a team for Allegri, if I'm being totally honest.
In what way do you mean?
In the way that he has a team that he has to manage, and for example, Leao, I don't see him fitting that much in his plans. But he's a strong player, and therefore he tries to put him in his way, because we've seen the best of Leao, on the wing, where he doesn't have to defend.
I mean, Allegri, so far this season, hasn't managed to make good use of any of the strikers that he's had. Sure, there were injuries, but Pulisic, Leao, Fulkrug, Nkunku. Yeah. I mean, we're not talking about elite stars here for sure, but do you think it's a formation? Do you think it's a formation problem here? Do you think that he should go to a 4-3-3 or something? I mean, Milan did at least used to play that way.
I think this goes back to our last episode where we said it's a sickness in Italy that we have to play like a 3-5-2 system. I thought that Allegri was going to play at the beginning of the season in a 3-4-3 system, but as soon as I saw Rabiot signing with Milan, I said, okay, it's a 3-5-2, and then you kind of rule out it. You can't leave Leao or Pulisic out of the team, so it's those two up front. Rabiot, Modric, obviously, and then it's either Loftus-Cheek or Fofana at that time. And Salamakers fits quite well in that system.
3-4-3 honestly
So-
wouldn't have been the worst idea ever, as long as he'd managed to make the defense work, either by getting those wide midfielders to tuck into the defense when not in possession. But yeah, that would have allowed Leao to keep his place on the wing. But even what happened with Leao, his injury, and he only recently started running properly again. Pulisic is in no man's land mentally. He's kind of struggling, it seems. But then there is Nkunku, who, 40 million for Nkunku is very hard to digest as a Milan fan, especially knowing how valuable money is for Serie A clubs. Then going to spend 40 million on someone like that. And then there's Fulkrug, who, it is what it is. Like, now, again, back to the standings. Milan do go down to third, still 6 points on Juventus, who are fifth in the league. And behind Juventus is a very special club. It's AS Roma, who didn't have the time of their lives at the San Siro last weekend. I'm going to just say this before I leave it to you, Luke. I did see this coming. On to you.
5-2
Yes. I'm
You
actually
got a
impressed
crystal
that you
ball
scored.
in your room.
No, not 5-2 exactly. But I was expecting a good 3-0, 4-0 situation because of the situation that you guys are in right now.
It was a fun game. Let me just say that it was a very fun game to watch.
Especially
No,
for
that's-
Roma fans.
That's how football should be played for a neutral. Attack,
No,
score
listen.
goals.
At least there were 7 goals. I mean, from that lens, it was an enjoyable watch, even.
Very enjoyable.
But let me just back my argument here, because one, I don't think Roma are in a good headspace right now at all. I think the situation is very serious there, especially with Gasperini, who is at this point in time, even against Inter. Gasperini against Inter should be studied. That someday we might have an episode on Gasperini against Inter, because this man manages to lose games against Inter. I think he'd lose even if he did manage Real Madrid and, against Inter. Like, if he played the best team ever against Inter, he'd lose every single day of the week, because for some reason this man does not manage to get a result against them, even in the
and there's
perfect,
a reason why.
which is
So, do you want me to go into this point, or we evaluate
let's
the
talk
game
about this.
from
No, let's talk about this, because I'm
Okay.
interested to know why.
It's very easy. Why? Because unfortunately, no matter if you have Inzaghi or Chievo against you with Inter, Gasperini does the same mistake, and that he sticks to his guns and he man marks.
A Pioli kind of approach,
I wouldn't say that.
like in the
I
sense
mean,
that Pioli kept doing the same thing over and over again against Inter and losing every single time
No,
almost.
some coaches, they're kind of like the kryptonite to other teams, and for example, Baroni always beats Gasperini because they find a way. And I think to go back to my point, Gasperini does, in my opinion, the same mistake because he tries to man mark. And we had Hermoso that was marking Barella and was leaving like the right side of the pitch always. There was a very big gap for Inter to attack on, and that opened like a very big space for them to continue to attack. And obviously, and then when you have individual mistakes and individual poor decisions, then that is what happens.
To be fair, I
Um,
think that Gasperini was unlucky when it comes to the moment he faced Inter, because he faced Inter apart from the trove of injuries that Roma have, but even like he faced Inter at a point where they just recovered Çalhanoğlu, they just recovered Lautaro Martinez. So
Look,
that's why I said that I expected a very good bashing, because two very bad things collided for Roma and it ended up in this.
I think it's unfair to expect that Roma were going to be thrashed the way that they were thrashed, because just before the international break, Inter, they had quite a few poor results
But
and
we
poor
did say,
performances.
look, we did say that the international break came at the perfect time for Inter, remember?
Definitely. And considering that we played on Easter Sunday, we managed to resurrect even Thuram and Barella, which was incredible. In my opinion, Inter, they had their best performance of the season. And certain players, like even Çalhanoğlu, they
What a
played
goal, by the way,
magnificent.
Çalhanoğlu.
I mean, very good.
Wow.
We could also discuss, Sevilla's positioning on that goal, but obviously it's quite difficult to save that kind of goal. And again, I think Thuram had his best game of the season. What's interesting is that 2 points. I think it's clear that once Roma do not have 1, 2, or 3 players, we instantly go from incredible. It's incredible. And we were without Wesley, Kone, Dybala still out. Sule just came after the international break, after month and a half out, and he played 70 minutes. And then at the halftime, when we were 2-1 down after that incredible goal,
it came at the wrong time as well, just before halftime, and then
and we lost Mancini.
Yeah.
And it's clear that once we lose, these kind of players, apart from having, Ferguson, Dovbyk, Dybala out, Angelino still hasn't, found his true form. He's had a problem all season. Tsimikas is still, I think, in Merseyside. He's been there for this year.
So I mean, all things considered, Gasperini has done an overall good job at Roma, I think, this season. But
what's funny?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to mention my second point, up until the 75th minute, we had more XG than Inter.
I read that actually.
We finished the game. The result was 5-2. XG Inter 1.15 and Roma 0.5, 0.6. So the result, I think, was a freak of nature. Obviously, Inter played well, but conceding 5, I think.
I mean, look, I expected this because, as I said, two very unfortunate situations kind of collided. And, going away to Inter is never an easy job.
Definitely. I didn't expect to win, to be fair, but obviously not to lose it this way.
I did expect this because Inter just came out of the international break on the right foot, and they are now set. They had time to regroup, and maybe they are now set to, we did have some mishaps. We did have those shocking results. I mean, shocking not as far as the result in per se is concerned, but draws against Atalanta and stuff like that. But now they started off on a clean slate, kind of, with Lautaro back, Thuram resuscitated, if you want to call it that. And Kevin, do you think that Inter have the Scudetto now in their clutches? Because with Milan losing and Napoli winning, Napoli have gone to a 7-point deficit with Inter, which 7 points in, and there are 7 games remaining. So
saying that they have the league set would go against everything I'm believing in right now. So I don't think that
there's a very similar situation. How far
Yes, it
off
is.
are you guys from
It's
Arsenal again.
9 points,
Mm.
but we have a game
A
in
game in
hand, and
hand,
we
so
play Arsenal at home.
so it's a similar situation, only that Inter
It's very
already did
similar.
play against Napoli.
It's very
So
similar. I mean, I think it can go till the last day, to be honest. That team can be in the best form and still lose against a team that you would not expect them to lose to. So I think it's I always give it till the last day. I mean, yeah,
it's
going.
gonna be a bit. We have to keep a close eye on what happens now. Inter play Como next, which is another kind of. This actually game will be for the Coppa Italia, so they do have a midweek game. But after that, let me have a look. They actually no, I'm actually mistaken. They play Como away in the Serie A, then Cagliari home, and then they have Como, the reverse fixture for Como in the Coppa Italia. So it's actually a pretty tough away game, which, you know, these kinds of games, Como Inter, guys, let's have a minute to talk about this maybe, because these are the kind of games that, we expect Como to go all out. They did draw Como to Udinese 0-0. Luke, did you have time to watch that game by any chance? Because I thought of it as a pretty disappointing result from Como's end, because I know how capable they are of winning at the moment.
I didn't watch the whole game because obviously over here it's different than in Italy. In Italy, when you have these kind of like Pasquetta and Befana, after Christmas and after Easter holidays, they tend to play lunchtime matches during the week. So
Oh,
obviously I
yeah.
couldn't see the whole. I think that um, obviously it's disappointing for Como to draw at Udinese. But to be fair, Udinese have been that kind of team this season that does well against the big teams. And what if, just like the international break proved to be very beneficial for Inter, what if Como lose a bit of
Their steam,
their
maybe.
form,
Hmm.
their steam? Yes. So maybe that's me being optimistic, but obviously it's a possibility. I think that it was unexpected to draw, to Udinese, but I think the next game is a more important game
I mean,
for both
Roma,
teams.
for what we've like considered so far, Roma are currently 4 points off Como, and Como do play the probable, champions of Italy next. So if Roma win against Pisa, which is very, not the craziest prediction ever, but yeah, um, they'd go back to they'd reduce that deficit, and maybe the Champions League, dream isn't over. And despite all the injuries that Roma have had this season, getting into the Champions League would be a very impressive, I think, result for Gasperini, because
The problem is that we're competing also with Juventus, so it's just three teams for one spot.
like, if you had to be
Um,
objective right now, Luke, who do you like more for the Champions League, Juventus or Roma, in terms of
like,
form and potential? Like attacking potential, defensive stability, and things like that.
so you're asking me basically who do I think would be more beneficial for Italy between
No,
Roma and
no,
Juve
no.
in the
I'm
Champions
talking
League?
about who is the better team right now between Juventus and Roma. The game ended in
You,
3-3, like, just how long ago was it? Was it a month or a fewer than that?
that's the thing. I think that game is the answer to your question because the inconsistency in both teams realistically is. I mean, before the international break, they drew against Sassuolo. They had a penalty that wasn't supposed to be a penalty, and they
Yeah,
lost
it
it,
was
and they
saved.
finished 1-1. So I think it would be unfair to just say one team because in reality, both of them are inconsistent for the fourth place. We've put Como on a pedestal, but obviously I think on paper, it is fair to say that they deserve the fourth place the most because they have been
I tend
consistent.
to
But
agree. I tend to agree. But
um,
I mean, yeah, I think between Como, Juventus, and Roma, I think Como is the best team, and by quite a stretch, even though, the player potential in the terms of, how much experience they have, Como don't
But the
have all that
worst,
much.
but the worst for Italy in Champions League next year, because
Do you think
obviously,
so?
yeah, definitely, it happens every time. We mentioned this in like 2 episodes ago. It happened for Bologna after Xerxia Motta. A team like Como isn't ready to play these kind of games
And
if
Roma
they don't have the
are.
experience.
I'm just gonna ask that. With the history of
Roma,
bashings in the Champions League, Roma have.
yes, but
Again, just gonna
You have
mention
the
it.
realistically,
experience of European football. I mean, that at least.
realistically, no. I wouldn't say the experience in Champions League, because it's been quite some time.
No, but I mean
That
European in general. You're in the.
perfect. That is
Mhm.
my point. If you had to see the last 5 or 6 years, Roma have had the best record in Italy in terms of Europe. They played in the Europa League and they played in the Conference League.
Conference
They
League.
won
I
the
mean, that
Conference
kind
League.
of helps the, you know,
Mhm.
It
stats.
helps the team to be ready for these type of European games. There's this saying, in on apart from the last 2 years, because obviously this year was a bit of a disappointment, that even last year, but Roma become Roma when they play on Thursdays. In the last year,
And what does that
couple of
mean
years.
exactly?
It means that we have favored European competitions since our years with Fonseca, De Francesco, and Mourinho. It shows that we were ready to sacrifice the league because we
Exactly.
had
Yeah.
limited
And that's, to be
players
honest, I
and
can appreciate that about Roma, because you don't see too many teams in Italy who actually, give the adequate importance to a European competition. I
and
even like even Napoli this season in the Champions League has been an absolute disaster, and it seemed at times that Conte was actively not prioritizing the Champions League. Which again, I'm not sure if I even believe in this prioritizing things, but it did seem that way, and I was really disappointed there because it put the Serie A in a very bad light. The champions of Italy getting trashed, even to the Dutch team who was at PSV or something.
yes,
Yeah, so I don't know. Going back to Roma, look, yeah, like it's far from over, of course, but I'm not sure where their heads are at Roma right now, and if I had to bet, I wouldn't bet on a very positive setting inside the dressing room within Gasperini's, staff, because uh,
I don't think it's a dressing room problem. I think the morale was never a problem, and obviously when you're in a time where the results aren't going your way, you can read a lot of comments and articles of that problem and that problem. All I can say is that from what I'm reading and hearing is that, just a quick example. Roma were going to renew Mancini and Cristante, and apparently today the Moretto, who is
yeah,
Fabrizio Romano's right hand man, said everything is on standby.
why though?
So the feeling is that the owners are focusing on having a competitive team even for next year, and basically they're sending out a message to people: nobody is untouchable.
Mm.
They want to build something with Gasperini, or at least that is what I think is what is wanted from the owners. I think that in 2 years, Roma are going to the Centenario, which means their hundredth
100, yeah,
year, and
anniversary,
it's
right?
going to be an important year for them. They want to be a competitive team with stadium plans.
They might even be
So
waiting to see what competition they'll be in when it comes to do Europe,
if they'll
even
be in one.
if they'll be in one, right? But to be honest, it does seem a bit off because Mancini is Roma's captain, and I mean, I wouldn't play
Not
those
really.
games. Like, who is the actual captain for Roma right now?
So last year it was Pellegrini, and he was the untouchable captain. But Gasperini changed the system. So basically, the one that has the armband is the one with the most
But
appearances on the team.
let's agree that Mancini is a pillar for Roma, right? I mean, as an important
Yes,
player in the
definitely.
dressing
Yeah.
room. So putting his contract on standby, like Milan did with Maignan last season, they actually had an offer for him, but before the contract was signed, the Milan board just kind of stalled everything, and it didn't really bode well with Mignon, who was pretty angry at the situation, but then came Tare and Allegri, who managed to kind of rectify the situation and get him to sign. But my point is that, toying like that with your very important player isn't a very nice thing to do, if we want to put it very simply. Now, Roma might be kind of postponing their renewals until they have more information about where they'll be in terms of the league next season. But it's still, I wouldn't, get a good positive vibe from that decision personally. Honestly, I'm not sure
Look,
what you think.
to kind of give some insight on your comments, Roma's biggest problem is wages.
That
is
they
the
pay
biggest,
too much, you mean?
and even in terms of financial fair play, the problem that we have. I mean, Ranieri last year, he threw a press conference at the end of the season, explaining what Roma problems were, because he wanted to be honest with everyone, any Roma fan. And he said the biggest problem, even in terms of financial fair play, is their wages. If you have Pellegrini, who's earning high wages and he's not up, performing. If you have Dybala, who's injured a lot and he's earning high wages. If you have Cristante, if you have even Mancini, and if you have to sell 60 million before the 30th of June to comply with financial fair play regulations, you cannot exclude anything. And I don't think that the problem is renewing Mancini or Cristante. I think it's putting
because that's a show of fate, though, isn't it? If you just say, okay, Mancini, you are a very important player to the team, here's your renewal. Like, I know it's too simplistic that way, might be too simplistic, but that's kind of my point, is that, postponing the renewal of someone who is important to the dressing room, I'm sure that Mancini is that,
the thing is that, okay, it's a show of fate, but if the results aren't coming in, and if there is an opportunity to kind of like what I'm not saying now that they should sell him and they should sell the other one and whatever, but the year Napoli won the league with Spalletti, they sold Insigne, they sold Mertens, they sold Koulibaly, and okay, they bought really very important players in with Kim Min-jae.
But do you think that there is an actual revolution that needs to happen within Roma? Like, do you think that's actually needed right now? At the end of the season, at least, not right now.
The thing is that the hint of a revolution starts every 2 years, and it starts to get frustrating. And the problem is similar to Italy's problem, by the way, is that it starts with the sporting director and starts with the dirigenti, the staff behind Ranieri and that work with Ranieri. We are still without a CEO, for example. We are still with a sporting director that in the last few years, I think he wasn't up to par. I expected better from him. We had Thiago Pinto that went to Bournemouth. We had Ghisolfi last year that went to Sunderland as a sporting director. So you're trying to start a project with these people and they leave. And obviously, Thiago Pinto managed to do a lot with little, bringing Dybala and bringing Lukaku in. And Massara this year, he brought in Ferguson, Bailey, and they didn't work out. So in my eyes, he was a bit of a failure, and he might leave or whatever next year. It's all again, kind of like a question mark for next year.
Before we head off, guys, I'm just going to pose this one question. Look, do you think that Totti is a candidate, should be a candidate for Roma's structure as it is, not just as a brand ambassador who just goes to the odd talk and things like that, but someone who's actually embedded within the club to make good sporting decisions? Because what I've read right now by Nico Schira primarily is that that's what Totti doesn't want. He doesn't want to just be the figure, like just a figure who is paraded around as a kind of Roma symbol. He wants to actually be, you know, have his insights and his opinions listened to and trusted by a Roma board who would want to use him to kind of push on with their ideology and success.
So, to my knowledge, Totti was asked to be an ambassador for the Centenario. So he would work, close to Roma, but without having, that role, that sporting director role. To answer your question, I don't think that it makes sense to bring him as a sporting director because,
He doesn't have experience, right? I mean,
not because he doesn't have. Okay, so when he retired, he continued to be a sporting director with us alongside Monchi, who was the sporting director of Aston Villa and Sevilla.
okay, so he does have some
And
experience.
he has C10. It's just like a scouting management agency. So that's what he did after he finished from his Roma experience. The reason why he didn't stay is similar to why Baggio didn't stay with the Italian Federation, is that he wanted more power, as you said. And one example is that, for example, he wanted to bring Ziyech to Roma. It was almost ready, but Monchi preferred to bring in Pastore rather than Ziyech, and that is why. That was a reason why Totti said, okay, I don't have any say here,
Authority,
so
yeah.
I don't think it's because you were if we were to talk about his time with Roma, 25 years, there's no bigger player than Totti for Roma.
By far, yeah.
But if we're talking in the administrative side for Roma, I think it would make sense for him to be part of the club, like Zanetti, for example. But obviously, it's not that easy to say, listen, give him the power to make the decisions.
I mean, you could have seen with Maldini as well at Milan, who took that kind of
Maldini
role. He
did a very good job,
make some
in my
good.
opinion.
He started off with some very good decisions, but as time went on, as the decisions kind of grew bigger and more important in Primis, I'm going to just say De Ketelaere, among other candidates like Origi, Vranks, and other very players that have just gone with the wind. It seems. It did show that he was, and this wouldn't please my friend who is a Milanista, who's very he loves Maldini to death and still does and still wants him back to this day. Imagine that. But as you said, experience on the field doesn't really equate to experience as a sporting director, and he did a good job to remain with the team. And after his once he was included as a sporting director, he was very involved in the happenings of the team. But his inexperience and a bit of an ego situation was definitely present. He wanted specific players and he wanted them at all costs or at most costs. They didn't pan out, and then he was brought into question. I'm not saying that Maldini was the only problem for Milan at the time, definitely not, but he was essentially part of the issue at that time. So that's why I'm saying that the Totti Maldini kind of parallel can be drawn here.
Maldini had a vision, in my opinion. He saw Milan as a like a kind of modern Milan. He wanted the next step for Milan, and investing in young players, and that is why I think he would do very well with the Italian Federation, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I think they really should appoint him and use his knowledge and expertise, because Italy have so many legends, to be honest, that they can.
I would take Maldini with Roma, to be fair.
I mean, Massara was Maldini's right-hand man, to be fair.
Exactly.
It didn't really pan out for Massara. So at Roma so far, because you have to give these things time as well. You can't judge him from one season only. But yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes, guys. But this is all the time we have today. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we will be back with the next episode next week. So thanks, people.
Thank you.
Thank you.